Oh my god, I love Coachella so much. Oh my god, and I look so good. Wait, I need this for my fans. Let me get some kombucha up here. Oh my god, my kombucha tastes the best. Buy it. It's just so amazing, you know? Oh my god. All right, I can't keep doing this. So, in this episode of Fantasy Vanpool, we're going to be talking about how influencers and hipsters are like firearms and how we can compare a hipster to firearms analysis. All right, guys, let's get started. All right. So, firearms analysis. What exactly is firearms analysis? Well, what we do in firearms analysis is that we compare striations and impressions made on bullets and cartridge cases from a firearm to determine whether those bullets and cartridge cases came from the same firearm. That means that I could have someone who's shooting at different locations, different crime scenes. I have bullets recovered from each of those crime scenes. If they match up, and then further, if they match bullets that I know came from that firearm, then that means that those bullets at the crime scene came from that firearm and that firearm alone. All right? So let me get us to my PowerPoint. So, firearms analysis. What exactly is going on when a bullet is launched out of a firearm? Well, a bullet is launched out of a firearm because of a chemical reaction that is happening within the barrel of the firearm. So think of it like right here, if the bullet is getting loaded right here. So a chemical reaction is happening right here, and that chemical reaction causes gas to form, a very compressed gas formation. And because that gas needs somewhere to go, that bullet is going to travel out of the barrel. The bullet is going to go this way out of the barrel. And as it goes out of the barrel, certain markings are going to happen onto the bullet. Now, why is that? Well, let me tell you the basic concept of firearm analysis comparison. So when firearms are made, usually most things are automated, meaning a machine is going to put them together from the raw materials. And that's true. A lot of firearms are made that way. However, there are certain things like smoothing down the bore of the gun, the barrel of the gun, that is done by humans. So there's a human element. And whenever there is a human element to things, there is an individual element. And when there's an individual element, that means that we can trace it using forensic science. So when that firearm is made, a firearm person is going to smooth out the barrel of the gun, make sure that there's no big jagged pieces of metal that will stop the bullet or cause it to malfunction. We're going to be smoothing, sanding pieces down, making it as beautiful and as pristine as possible on the surface. However, if I microscopically go down to the subsurface or the microscopic surface of that firearm, there's going to be little differences between this gun and this gun. So why is that? And that's because no two guns are going to be polished and manhandled by the same person the same exact way. There's going to be differences that arise. There always will be. And we might not see it at the eye level, but we can see it at the microscopic level. Okay? So if I had two firearms that came on the conveyor belt one after another, the markings on these bullets right here are going to be different than the markings on these bullets right there. All right? So say that this was made at 8 a.m. That man that is smoothing down the barrel of the gun, he's chipper, he's happy, he got a good night's rest. He's going to do a great job. Now, if firearm 2 was smoothed out at 4 p.m., it's the end of his day, it's the end of his shift, he's tired, he might not do as well of a job, and we can see the differences that arise on the fired ammunition from these two firearms. And it is those differences that allow us to make those individualizations. So what are tool marks? I mentioned at the beginning of this video words like striations and impressions, and I didn't really explain them. A tool mark is simply a mark when you have a harder substance and a softer substance, and the harder substance, when it comes into contact with that softer substance, is going to leave some sort of impression or tool mark onto the softer of the two substances. Now, we classify two different types in this class. We have striations, which is where something is dragging across the surface. It's causing scratches to form, kind of like scratching on a chalkboard. And then we have impressions, which is instead of a dragging motion, it is simply a pressing motion. There's an impression that's being made. So think of your thumb in Play-Doh as opposed to nails on a chalkboard, which is striations. So the barrel of a gun, whether you knew it or not, the barrel of a gun has these kind of spiral indentations within them. And we call those the lands and the grooves. So lands on the barrel of the gun are raised mountains, where grooves are little valleys, the lower parts. So lands are the high part, grooves are the low part. So why is it a spiral? Well, if I were to throw a football just lobbing it at someone versus, giving it a spiral, the one that threw or the one that has a spiral on it will be more accurate. It has better speed, and I could maybe throw it farther as opposed to just lobbing it. There's going to be a lot of wind resistance because it's just going to be kind of this blob-like football kind of traveling through air. So that's why a firearm has these lands and grooves. It imparts the bullet with better precision, better speed, better accuracy. Now, the bullet is made of a softer metal, maybe copper or bronze, where the firearm is made with a harder metal, iron. And so when the bullet travels down the barrel of the gun, the lands and the grooves are actually going to striate impressions into the bullet. All right, so the lands on the bullet are going to be the valleys because the mountains, they were mountains on the barrel, so that would make sense that they're valleys on the bullet. And similarly, the grooves, which on the firearm are valleys, are going to be mountains on the bullet because they're opposites of each other. So it's these striations, these, scratches on the bullet surface that we look at for those tool marks and those individualizations. So what are we looking at specifically? We'll look at the size of the bullet. We're going to look at the number of those twists, the number of the lands and the grooves, the direction of the lands and the grooves. It could be going in the right direction or it could be going in the left direction. So once we look at those class characteristics, meaning these are big things, many guns could have 7 lands and grooves, or many bullets can be 9 millimeters. So once we establish those class characteristics, we're going to be looking at individual characteristics. And this is where that concept of no two firearms are made exactly the same way. So what you're seeing here, these lines, are striations. Those are the scratches as the bullet travels down the bore of the gun. Now, when we look at it through a microscope, we try and align these scratches, these striations, to see, can we identify whether the bullet on the left, say that this is a known bullet from that firearm, matches up with the striations, say, from our crime scene sample or our unknown, U for unknown sample. And if they identify, or if they line up with each other, then we've made an identification. We can say that both of these bullets came from the same firearm. Now, if I know that my bullet on the left came from the firearm, I can say that this unknown bullet came from that firearm. All right? Now, what if I were to say that I didn't know where my bullet on the left came from, and it was crime 1, and my bullet on the right is crime 2, and they're both unknown? Well, I can still align them up, and I can say, well, wait a second. Both of these bullets came from a firearm. I just don't know what that firearm is. So even if I don't have a firearm that can give me a known standard of what that barrel looks like, I can still make comparisons between unknown bullets and make individualizations. So the second thing on a firearm is the impression. So we have here what's called the breech face. So this is the breech face. And what's going on is when a firearm is discharged or when a bullet is discharged, basically, remember that chemical reaction that's happening? Well, the bullet is traveling out one direction down the barrel, but the cartridge case that this chemical reaction is happening in, it needs someplace to go as well. And with semi-automatic or automatic pistols, and even revolvers as well, there's going to be an impression here based on the mechanics of the firearm. And what's happening is this cartridge case slaps. It slaps upon the breech face. And remember, an impression is where there is just simple pressure, just one-sided pressure, not a scratching motion like with striations. So when that cartridge case hits the breech face, we're going to have breech face impressions. Now, what is a breech face impression? It's simply the breech face imparting its hard surface onto the softer cartridge case. So we have here a firing pin impression right here that we can compare. We might have some drag marks on the sides here. And all of that is coming from the breech face or the ejection apparatus from the firearm. So think of the striations on the bullet as striated marks, and think of the breech face impressions as impression marks. So why is this like the awful, god-awful influencer culture that seems to be popular nowadays? Well, think of influencers. They're people that simply have no job. I stand by that statement. They have no job, and they, simply plug products, either skincare or hair care or makeup or literally whatever lifestyle products on their Instagram or their social media. Now, we listen to them, we watch them, and maybe consciously or subconsciously, we listen to them. They are imparting, they are impressing upon us their opinions, their ideas, their, influences. So think of the influencer as the firearm, they are imparting some sort of striation or impression upon us, and we are the soft and malleable bullet that gets fired through the firearm. We listen to them, whether consciously or subconsciously. We do or say or think or dress the way that they do because we are soft and we are malleable in that regard. All right? So think of it like that. If that's the way that you want to think about it, that's awesome. I don't want to think about hipsters or influencers any more than I need to. So I simply commit all this to memory and I peace out. Okay, guys, you have a great day. I'll see you guys later. All right.